What is an ego? Oftentimes, we might hear somebody say, that person, they have a really big ego. Or perhaps we might say something like, I'm sorry, that was my ego. It wasn't really me. So, what are we referring to when we talk about this ego? In non duality, the ego or the separate self, which is actually the terminology that I prefer to use in my own teachings of the direct path, is the feeling and belief that one is separate from everyone and everything, including plants, animals, and objects. And because this one feels separate, they tend to do things to others and their environment that they simply would never do to themselves. Because then we think to ourselves, well, that's not me. So why should I care what happens to this other or my surroundings? And the ego is also the one that is rooted in the sense of lack. It's constantly going out into the world and search for peace, love, and happiness. It wants to return to this sense of fulfillment and feel complete. And it searches for this peace, love, and happiness by a multiple different avenues, mostly through the acquisition of material objects, getting into relationships, using substances, and performing activities. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with any of those things I mentioned, but when we are searching for peace and happiness towards these things, then we are indeed acting from ego consciousness. When in actuality, we already are the peace and happiness that we are looking for. We just have to reveal and dissolve this ego to allow our true essence to shine brightly in the foreground of our experience. And we can look around in our world today and see that majority of people are operating from this sense of separation. A lot of people are seeking this sense of fulfillment through all of these avenues that I mentioned. And on top of that, we see how unkindly a lot of people treat each other, and not even other people, but also our environment. Now, the ego or separate self isn't a discrete entity in and of itself. It's actually a illusory or imaginary self. It doesn't actually exist. And the ego is created, so to speak, through our association with the activities of the body and the mind. Any thoughts that we may have, such as, I want this, I need that, I should do this, or perhaps any thought that claims doership over our experience, such as, I chose that thought or I made that decision. These are all good indications that that pesky ego is still lurking in the system. So, to begin revealing and dissolving this ego, all we have to do is start getting into a state of meditation. And by doing so, we start to create a distance, so to speak, between ourselves and the activity of the mind. we're able to be more knowingly this witnessing presence of awareness rather than getting involved and carried away by our thoughts, feelings, and images. And over time, by repeating this process and doing meditation over and over again, we start to strengthen this connection as the witness of our experience, the witness of our thoughts and feelings, rather than being our thoughts and feelings. So we're not actually doing anything to the ego. The ego doesn't exist. So we're not trying to kill it. All we're trying to do is see clearly for what it truly is. And when we shine the lights of awareness on this activity of the mind over and over again, eventually the mind runs out of its ways and tactics of pulling out of our true nature, and we become more and more established in our true essence. The mind begins to fall silent. So I encourage you to start getting yourself into a state of meditation if you haven't already. And by doing so, just simply allow any thoughts that you may have to arise and become the witness. Don't allow yourself to be completely drawn out and get involved with this activity of the mind. You simply just want to witness it. And by doing so, you will create this shift in your identity from this illusory self to the one and only self that there is, which is consciousness or awareness. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. And remember to keep your heart open and stay present. I'll see you in the next one.